and welcome back to the Suddenly Twenties podcast, episode 2 of season 2. Welcome. Today, we are talking about a very exciting topic. It is your favorite episode from last season. We thought we'd do a version 2, and that is
Toxic Friendships 2.0. Yes, I'm so here for it.
Yes.
We thought better do this one again because we got so much amazing feedback. It's our most downloaded episode by far. So far. We thought we better bring some more people on and they can talk about their kind of toxic friendships and how they've gotten out of it, some tips from them, and all of their little insights. So
yeah, and I feel like this topic I'll just always have things to say about, it's just such an unspoken topic, but it's kind of becoming like a thing now. And I just feel like with the feedback that we got, when I listened to that episode, I just listened to it before and I thought of so many things that I didn't say in that episode. So I feel like there's so many more toxic friendship episodes that I could speak to. But today we are bringing on Eliza Slattery. I went to high school with Eliza. We'll explain how we know them when we bring them on. But I actually went to high school with both the two people we've brought on. So we're going to bring on Demi Hosking as well. But in the episode last year, we were going to bring on Eliza. We just didn't, we weren't able to. So we are doing that today, which is very exciting. It's been long awaited for her.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested to hear their side of things and their experiences and what they think as well. Because we're very similar with how we feel. So it'd be interesting to hear other people. Should we just get straight on into it?
Should we just bring her on? We are back with Eliza. Hello, Eliza. Welcome to the Suddenly Twenties podcast. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Explain how you're here and how you know us and a little bit about you.
Yeah, so obviously my name is Eliza. I'm very fortunate enough to be friends with both of you beautiful ladies. And I met Shana, we could probably say through Steph or through a mutual group of friends, and we ended up playing Ultimate Frisbee together. So that was absolutely fantastic, although I am not good at Ultimate Frisbee. But then, obviously Steph and I have known each other since high school and then really only became close 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Somewhere there.
About then.
Somewhere along those lines. And I'm just really excited to be here. So thanks for having me, guys.
Of course.
Yeah, that's all right. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis and where you are in life and what exciting things you have coming up?
2022, it is obviously going to be a massive year for everyone. I am looking forward to this year, hoping that COVID starts to fade into the darkness and we get a little bit more of a normal routine in our lives. I mean, what I do professionally, I work in communications and I absolutely love it. I have ever since I finished uni and while I was at uni. And this year, probably the biggest thing that's happening for me is that I am getting married and both of you will be there, which is very exciting. I just think that we've all got to be really positive at this point in time because I'm trying to adjust my mindset, and not so much as that I've set New Year's goals or resolutions, but I've kind of set milestones that I want to achieve by certain points in the year. But if they move, that's okay as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that so much. You'll have to tell us a little bit more about it at the end. Hello, guys. So we have a second guest on today, and that is Demi. Hello, Demi. Welcome to the Suddenly Twenties podcast. We're
Hello.
happy to have you here.
Happy to be
here. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Oh, well, I'm Demi. And I work in beauty for 5 years now. So I own Beauty Base Canberra. So I do lash extensions. I've just started doing microblading and all that kind of thing. But I've been in that industry for a while now. I went to uni. I studied criminology. and decided I hated it. I went and worked in defense for about 6 months and wanted to kill myself. So I pretty much left straight away. And yeah, I'm just in the beauty industry and loving it, loving life.
Yeah. Thriving in the beauty industry, really.
Oh, it's doing
all
okay.
the Canberra girls who are listening, definitely go follow Demi. What's your business account? Tag it.
Well, it was Demi Lash Canberra, but I've recently just rebranded because we expanded our services and everything. So just didn't make sense anymore. So I want to hire staff and everything soon.
So exciting.
So Beauty Based Canberra is on Instagram.
Yeah, we'll have it linked in the show notes, or for those watching YouTube, in the description below, we will have her business linked down below, so you can go book through there. Well, so we thought we would ask you what you liked about our previous toxic friendships episode, and just generally if you have any experiences with toxic friendships.
Yeah, so I mean, just to start from the top, what you said there, it was really exciting to actually see people podcasting about the topic, because I have met so many women in the last few years, be it in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, who have actually shared with me experiences they've had that were really similar to mine. And I've been fortunate enough to share some of my experiences with those people and then kind of come to the realization that, oh, hey, we aren't talking about this enough. And I don't, you don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I think there's a particular kind of level of complication that can exist in relationships with women where things kind of go unsaid. And it might not be that they're brushed under the rug as such, but they are left to simmer, and they're left to simmer in a way that makes someone feel really negative or makes someone feel like they can't share it and open up about their feelings. And so for me, that was the absolute number one favorite thing about your podcast, was that, hey, look, actually other people are experiencing this and other people want to talk about it as well and share how they're feeling, because I only think the only way we can really move forward all together or as a society is, of course, when we have conversations about things, and that's literally across so many subject areas. So I mean, for me as such, I've had probably a number of experiences which I would say are relevant to the overarching umbrella of toxic friendships, and they appeared in different ways in my life. And I think ever since I started high school, I found navigating friendships really tough. And I had a number of friendships for literally years, which even my closest family members, including my mum, would actually say to me out loud, Eliza, you need to remove yourself from that friendship because I can see the pain and sadness that you're bringing home that other people don't see. And I mean, as a typical teenage girl, you just ignore what your parents are saying, even if they're just speaking the truth to you, So I suppose then what were those people really doing? Well, each of those people that my family told me I needed to remove myself from had very specific ways of treating others, which created what I now refer to as an unrealistic emotional barrier. So it's kind of pushing your emotions to the point where, and the best example I can give is truly you just feel like you're walking on eggshells. And I was hoping everything that I said and decided to do would be okay with these people. And I was genuinely afraid after the simplest things, like if they didn't respond to me on text for a period of even 2 hours, because of the way this other person treated our relationship, something that minor was allowed to scream for Eliza's supposedly done something wrong. I'm pushing Eliza into this space. I want her to feel isolated or negative or whatever it was that they were kind of hoping to achieve. And there was this regularity that was sometimes on a weekly basis where I would be made to feel like I'd somehow done something wrong. And honestly, the majority of the time, no, I had not done anything wrong. It was, as I said, an emotional manipulation technique. Like only teenage girls can execute to that level of perfection.
Yes.
It is so dangerous and it is so scary. And I mean, like, what did this result in? These behavior changes and this pattern of treating me? Well, the walls created in these relationships were so high because the trust issues were, I suppose, really strong on my side, but not on that person's side, because I was obviously made to feel like emotions weren't spoken about in these relationships and everything was swept under the rug, and you always had to be okay, happy, pretty, going to the gym, moving on with life, not discussing how you're feeling or whatever else it may have been. And that toxic energy actually corrodes your feelings over time. And for me, unfortunately, it corroded my feelings to a point where I became, and this is a really tough thing to share, but I know I still struggle with it now, but where I became overly sensitive to pretty much everything because I was always on alert and I was always walking on eggshells, that it just became a way of life for me to be that overly sensitive and nervous about everything.
How have you identified that your past experiences have been toxic, and then you either have or haven't left those experiences, but like how did you realize that they were toxic and what made them toxic?
Well, let's start with jealous friendships. That's like a big one for me. I don't know why, but it's just like always been the common denominator in my friendships for some reason. I don't know. I just feel like it's people who can never be happy for anything that you do and will always respond in ways that refer to how they are going or what they are achieving. Like I've had this issue with a few friends in the past, and you can tell when someone is actually genuinely like happy for your successes in life. And like the people who hate to hear that you're doing great.
It's such a downer. You're like, I just wasted effort on like my energy on you telling you something positive, and you've just like put it into the ground. Like now I'm not even happy for that success because you've made me feel like shit.
Yeah. Exactly. Like when my friends tell me things, I'm like, holy shit, like let's go get drunk. Like let's celebrate this shit. But like I'm actually interested to know how they're going, like their successes, like all that kind of thing. It's not like it's not just one-sided. But me personally, like I'm not a jealous person, and I love to support my friends in all of their endeavors in life. And I absolutely love it when my bestie smash goals, and I swear I'm like their biggest hype gal. And I don't know, if I don't get it in return, it's fine. But it gets to the point where it's like this person can just never ever be happy for you, and it's draining. Like you can tell it's from a jealousy perspective. And then
if your friends aren't like your biggest hype people,
you can just tell,
like they're not there for you.
Exactly.
And it shows so much on
just
them.
For an example, like like you buy a house or like something great happens, like you get a promotion or you get like a I don't know, just some other example, and like this jealous friend will literally go and tell people that like your house is shit or your promotion shit, like you're not getting paid that much, like they're getting paid more than you still. And then it's like it can also be in jealousy in regards to like your other friends as well, like someone who tries to turn you against your other friends for absolutely no reason at all, and just make things up about them because they're jealous of that friendship and what you have with them. Like I've had friends in the past that, you know, like I've had like my two best friends, Amy and Ellen, like they have been in my life for like 8-9 years. And I've had friends, you know, after them that are like, you know, they find it really hard. I don't know why, they just get jealous of them. So they try and turn me against them. But I'm like, there's no way that you could ever turn me against those two. Like they're my world. Like, don't even try. You know what? They have like literally in the past convinced me that they are shit. And then I have a fight with that person who's my close friend because of the way that they've like, you know, perceived them or like, you know, convinced me that they've done this or they've done that. And then I'm like, I sit back and I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Like they would not do that to me. Like they are my best friend. You know, like it's just dumb shit like that. Just pisses me off.
It's like, no, it's really difficult because like, you know how people say like your 5 closest friends like represent who you are. I feel like when you spend, like if you had your 5 closest friends, you spend a lot of time with those people and they can have so much influence on you. And if like one of those people has an opinion of someone else that like might be negative, like you'll almost adopt that just because you spend so much time with them, and like you forget like what your own feelings are. And if that's another best friend of yours, they can be like, if you're just spending a lot of time with this, say, toxic person who's like, this person A is really unhealthy, you'll start believing that just because you're spending a lot of time with them. And it's like, I feel like you often forget like your own feelings and emotions, especially when they have such dominant forward personalities.
Like, exactly. Even in just like relationships, you start to like pick up their traits, like the way they speak, like you pick up the way your boyfriend speaks or whatever. And you don't realize like you do the same thing in friendships, but it's probably not the way it could be the way they speak, but it's like how they feel towards other people. And then you lose yourself in it because you're constantly hearing this negative opinion on someone else.
It almost, like, I tried to think of a metaphor. It's like to put it in simple terms, but it's really, really difficult. So like one thing I would say is you almost feel like someone's asking you to try and cycle along a tiny little string over 100 meter deep gorge, where the 100 meter deep gorge is their anger and their rudeness or a subtle change in their behaviors, which make you feel like crap. So you're on this thin line, and any fault, there will be somewhere in the pit you will land, and none of it is safe. It is always met with negativity. That is how that person addresses you. Even if you are asking for support, there will be a subtle stab, or there will be, well, I did it this way, so, clearly because I'm better than you in that space, or whatever it may be.
I think that is such a like good way to explain it. And I personally feel like in a lot of toxic friendships, like even if you're trying to like cycle across like a tiny string, for instance, like they're going to knock you off most of the time. Like if you're good and you're doing the right thing, it's still not usually good enough, like, and it depends on the personality types that you're dealing with. Like in our last episode, we addressed that sometimes it can really be like a mismatch in like personalities, but other times there are actually some mean teenage girls around, and I just think that sometimes they're going to throw you in the deep end even if you're doing exactly what they want you to do. Like it's a part of the drama that they seek and want and desire.
And I think like it's good that we address this, because even if there are listeners that are still in high school or at that age, you almost don't realize it until this age that you have toxic friendships. Like you don't know until you're like, wait, and communication becomes like a big key in your life in other relationships, that then you're like, wait, why is my friendships like this then? And then you look back and it all happens, like I feel like in high school at that age. So I feel like now that we are like talking about it, it will get to that age group, and hopefully it does stop, or those people are able to communicate better or have like an emotional connection.
You really hit the nail on the head there. Like communication is key. That is short and sweet sentence, but it sums it up so well in that when you're in high school, right, everyone has troubles communicating because they don't know how to. You're growing, you're going through puberty or changing friendship groups or whatever it may be. And then for me, that pivotal point was my early 20s, because I could see my values changing, and they were changing drastically really quickly, but it was in a way which I felt I actually couldn't communicate the changes that were going on in my life with who were supposedly my closest friends. And that was the first time I kind of sat back and thought, oh my gosh, I don't have a desire to or feel comfortable enough to share this information with them. How is that a friendship? Why do I feel that way? And for me, then I started to really nut out what do I need to do to move forward, because this isn't going to be something that I actually can take on forever.
Even reconnecting with people from school, like throughout the years, like obviously like with our close friend passing and stuff like that, it was still just the same shit. And I'm like, I would love to reconnect with you, and I would love to, be friends with you again. But, and I tried, I really did. And I go out for dinner with them and stuff, but it was still just like narky little comments and like bitchiness. And I was like, is this still happening? Like, we are 3 years out of school or whatever it was, and this is still going on. I still had the judgment, but I felt like when I was at school, I had so many of the girls judging me all the time. I felt like I feel like people look at me now from school and they're like, oh, of course this bitch is in beauty. Like, that's the way I was perceived in school. Like, they all just thought I was dumb and that I was nothing and I was worthless. Like, in reality, I hated school. I literally just could not concentrate because I just hated all the different, like, things that we had to learn and all that kind of thing. It just wasn't for me. School just wasn't for me. And I just used to, bludge a little bit. I didn't really care about my grades. I just did not give a shit. And I still got into uni and I still did a degree. But like, I don't have to prove that to them.
It doesn't match your intelligence. Like, it doesn't, that does not represent like how intelligent you are, how driven you are. Like, you're running an extremely successful business and you're probably earning more than majority of the people that we went to high school with, and it's like everyone can have their own definition and form of success. And like the stigma when you go to a private school, there's this expectation that you're popular but you're also extremely intelligent, do homework, you're like so smart, you'll get into the best degree, you'll get into the best uni, you'll do XYZ. And like the truth is, why the fuck do we care? Like, everyone is going to have their own path, and I feel like you've got to get rid of the judgment the second you leave high school, if not before that, but that's highly unlikely because the school stems a lot of that as well. But like, once you've moved out of high school, like, I feel like it's your opportunity to start saying everyone's going to have their own pathway, everyone's going to do their own things. Like, Demi, you're running a successful business. I have a YouTube channel. I feel like I get judged on a daily basis for it. Shana, like, you do modeling and stuff like that, and it's just like everyone, like, if you have something that's a little bit different, right, and it's not studying certain degrees at university.
It's like, I went to a private school, but I wasn't in Canberra, and just like the differences like of a city, like.
So you went to a private school, and was it different?
I couldn't tell you who went to study. I mean, during year 12, obviously there's that like phase where it's like, what uni are you going to go to? And it was like, oh my God, like, I don't know what I want to do. Nothing compared to like how you guys are describing it. It was nowhere near as pressure. But I mean, like, your school was very like top, and you live in Canberra, so it's a very top school. People in my year, they're all doing exactly like, all doing what they want. So. And it doesn't mean uni. It's literally what they want. And I'm like, that's so good. Like, you don't have to do this or this. And like, when you said, oh, they look at me like, of course you're in beauty. Like, as if that's even like a phrase. Like, why is that? Or you're in beauty. Like, you're so successful and you have your own business. Like, does that not say something for itself? Like, you don't need a degree in anything to be successful.
I have to say, I have done a degree, but I work in beauty. I just felt the need because they're sitting there saying like they're going to become a doctor or they're going to be a lawyer or they're doing this, that.
My last psychology session, my therapist literally said to me, like, she's worked as a psychologist in a lot of different places, and she said she's never ever experienced any place like Canberra before. And I was explaining how I feel like this pressure to still, even to this day, follow a certain pathway, when really all I want to do is be different. I've known that I was different. I was a girl that lived in China. Like, I've always been different, but I still feel this pressure. And like she said, that it's Canberra, like it's like this culture here. And like, I guess it shows, Shana, like, you went to a private school and that culture wasn't there. No. So it's just so interesting to see.
It's like, even just catching up with people, like, after our close friend passed away, like, they're like, oh, so what are you doing now? And like, I'd say like, oh, I'm just doing lash extensions, and they'd literally, like, I'm not even kidding, laugh. Like, I had a few of them laugh, and I just was like, yeah, I'm probably making double what you do, but you don't even know that. But yeah, it is, you're so right, it is Canberra, 100%. But it's also the way, like, how your friends can,
When was that like moment of realization where you were like, like you just said, like, this friendship is toxic, like this, the reason why I'm feeling like this is because of my closest friends?
I mean, there's a long story and there's a short story, but the short story is there was a significant life event that occurred, and I went through it with a group of people who I didn't really feel connected to, and obviously hadn't since the later years of high school. And rather, since the later years of high school, I had already been thinking to myself, even on the final day of year 12, thank God I need to create some distance. I really needed to create some distance because I was not in a good place. And I think this significant life event kind of pushed us over the edge. And over time, the emotional toll I had from walking on eggshells in my closest friendships meant that I actually couldn't deeply connect with other people because I had created so many barriers for myself to connect and communicate with others. So when this significant life event occurred, I suppose you could say I was emotionally siloed, and when I tried to connect with them, it really felt super awkward and really uncomfortable for me. And so this drove me to the point where I lacked the physical energy to be who I was around these people. Like there's no other way to put it. I could not be myself. I could not share my thoughts. And to be honest, after the event occurred, I feel as though some other people knew how I was feeling, but just the support wasn't there. I don't know if they were ignoring it or it's how they were feeling, and everyone processes things differently 110%, but there were without a doubt specific examples of how I was made to feel excluded, or moments where I was not considered, even though I was right there at that physical moment, clearly, yearning to be included or to be a part of something. And I just got nothing back from the people that I was literally calling my best friends. And so for me, that was probably the pinpoint moment when I couldn't physically be who I was anymore, and it was just all fake. I'm sorry, but that's what it was. I wasn't me at all.
I think I don't know, Eliza, what you said literally made me tear up, because I just obviously know the details of the story. It's such a significant thing. I wish it was appropriate for us to talk about and to I wish we could share the proper details of how significant, one, that life event was for you and for everyone else involved, but two, the actions that came out of that. Because I think that it just, events like that really bring out everyone's true colors. Any kind of traumatic and significant life event does. And they were the people who you had dedicated 8 years of your life to, and who you ignored your parents advising you not to be friends with them. Yet in that moment when you all needed support equally, because you were equally as affected as one or the other or whatever, because it's not really a competition, they couldn't support you and they excluded you in that moment in time. And, Shana, our example is with someone that you don't know at a party, but what about when that person that you do know is your best friend who is struggling just as much as you are, yet you choose to leave them as the only person not welcomed into that circle of support from that significant event. Everyone struggles, everyone reacts differently, as you said, and they're entitled to their own processing of emotions. But I don't think that excluding anyone and belittling someone's feelings and turning a significant event into some sort of competition is ever going to be not considered a toxic trait. And I think that that's how you and me became friends, really. I feel like that's what stemmed into our friendship, was watching a lot of that unfold,
Exactly. And I think I probably can provide an example for the listeners. I mean, it was not long after this significant event had occurred, and someone I really desperately wanted to be with and needed support from wasn't available to me immediately after the event had occurred. And so when I had access to them, of course, the first thing I did was drive to their house, because like what else do you need at that moment in time? You need that person, you need that love. You want to be together supposedly to support one another. And
which you would expect from a friendship.
You would expect, but unfortunately I did not receive. So no, so you know, I arrive at this person's place, clearly just as distraught and confused, and we were there for all of 15-20 minutes, absolute maximum. So no one had processed anything. No one had the time to share how they were feeling. We were meant to prioritize each other as close friends. And 15-20 minutes comes, this person is asking me to drive them to someone else's house to be with them rather than to be with me. And I'm just sitting there absolutely gobsmacked thinking, who am I? What? I need your support. That's why I'm here right now. You've given me a whole 20 minutes and now you're telling me you need to go to person A's house and they're somehow more significant and more important than I am. And so this person had actually asked someone else for a lift who was in the house at that moment in time. They had said, no, I'm not driving you there. So that's when I put my hand up, being what I thought was a good, kind, caring friend, that maybe, you know, I'd receive a bit of that in return. And so I drove this person there, got to this house, and they exited the car. And I literally leaned over to them and said, oh, hey, you know, you thinking it might be okay if I come in too? Absolutely nothing. And I was just...
And you were friends with this other person as well?
Yeah.
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 I couldn't explain to you why or how or what the thought process is there, but it hurt me like I had literally never been hurt, because I realized that in that moment, if they cared about you, they would have given you more than 15-20 minutes. If they cared about you, they wouldn't have put it on you to drive them there. If they cared about you, they would have invited you inside and you wouldn't have had to prompt it. It is literally that simple.
Yeah. It shows that friendship, and you should never be like treated like that in a friendship. And I think Steph and I were talking about this, like I think we were talking about partners, and we said communication is the biggest key in relationships, and we wouldn't stay in a relationship where there were like red flags and that person didn't give you what you needed. So why do we do that in friendships? And I don't think we realize that until this age, and that's the whole reason of why like we want to talk about it, is because it's years that you go through, which is like traumatic, and then you realize like how much damage you have from those friendships being like so toxic. So why keep those friendships? Yeah. And when you wouldn't keep a relationship.
What, Eliza, would your advice be if you could go back to you when you're sitting in that car and let that person get out? Like, what, if you were there, you know, what would you say? If you could go back to your 16-year-old self, like what would your message be?
I think there's two things here. One is that when you're in high school, so much is going on that it is so difficult to actually make any what you perceive as bold or unusual or statement making decisions, and because of that you just don't do it. So hindsight's a beautiful thing, and I mean, if a 16-year-old was listening to this podcast and feeling how I felt at that point in time, everything is so case by case, but the best advice I could probably give is know that things will change and you will find the courage. And even if the courage comes because you just can't handle it anymore, it was a good thing for me, because it showed exactly how upset, uncomfortable and disconnected I really felt. And if not one person after seeing that actually went, oh my God, something's really, really wrong with Eliza, it was just it was a telltale sign that none of these people really care about you that much, because otherwise someone would be knocking on your door. Yeah, courage comes in different forms, and being 16 is so, so tough. But the time will come, and the best thing you could probably do for yourself at this point in time is not to be afraid to connect with other people because of whatever high school perceptions are going on. Just because they're in Z group, or they hang out with said lady, or whatever it is, doesn't matter. Reach out to those people, have a conversation with those people, because the majority of the time they're the ones that you'll connect with that actually have a lot of similar thought processes to you.
Yeah. And exhibit A with that is Eliza and I. Like, we literally went to high school together, and we were friends, but we weren't really like, you know, that close in high school. And a lot of it is because like we were part of said group and all of that sort of stuff. But eventually certain events led us to being very, very close, and things change. You make new friendships. There's a lot of fish in the sea, not just in terms of relationships, but also in terms of friendships. There's like more fish in the sea, for friendships. Like, there's so many people you can meet, and you can have more than one friend. And it's just like, it can actually be really, really good for you to have healthy friendships, and you don't need to stay in your toxic ones, or you don't need to hang around and let people treat you like shit and not invite you to things and exclude you from things just because that's how you grew up.
Exactly.
And the other thing I suppose it's worth adding is everyone's always going to have a different perspective, right? And that is something that's so difficult, not only as a young woman in high school, but as a young woman out of high school, actually learning to accept that people will perceive your actions and your decisions and opinions differently from how you intend them. And that's just going to happen throughout your whole life. So I am full willing to admit that there were probably moments where people thought, oh, Eliza's, acting strangely, or she seems distant, or she doesn't want to participate. But that all of those feelings and decisions made were because I'd already been pushed to the brink. I'd already been placed on eggshells for so many years that I had nothing left in me to give.
Yeah. And I think everyone gets that point. They're like, I can't give anymore. And then that's when they realize, like, this is not healthy. This is not what a friendship should feel like. I guess what's like one or a few things that you could say to the listeners, like things to look out for, like if they are still in school or out of school that are in toxic friendships, one thing to look out for in those friendships to kind of identify that they're not healthy?
I think manipulation is a very big thing. It's just people who, I don't know, a thing that I struggled with in the past is when people can't admit that they are in the wrong when they are, and can never understand like what they are doing is actually hurting you. I've experienced this multiple times with friends, and I'm so open and transparent with them when they do hurt me or upset me in any way, and it's so normal for this to happen in friendships. And I'm not perfect either, but I feel like I can accept the fact that I have in fact hurt them and can learn from the mistake in a way. But in the past, I've just struggled with friends who literally cannot see your side and why you're upset. And it takes them like a very, very long time to admit and apologize for the way they've treated you. I feel like, if you have a friend that can just never admit they're wrong, or it takes them a very, very long time to realize what they've done, it's a red flag. Like, you've got to get out of there. And it's exhausting because you actually go through the motions so many times. Like, obviously, it's two-sided, no one's perfect in a friendship, but if there's one friend that can never ever admit that they've done something wrong, it'll just keep happening. But I mean, then you'll get to the point where they will admit that they're in the wrong, and they'll say that they'll fix what they're doing. And then like 2 to 3 weeks later, they're back to hurting you again and doing the same thing. And then it just becomes a cycle, and you get so exhausted, and it actually like affects your mental health.
Eliza, do you want to touch on, like, you know, how you got from A to B?
How did we get from point A to point B? Well, I think the other than significant life events kind of forcing me to make some decisions, I started sharing with women who were older than me. And I think I kind of touched on this at the beginning, in that I was pretty bold in that because I was so lonely yet surrounded by people, I was actually desperate to connect. I don't think that's something to be ashamed of, because I've got a lot of love to give. And I was desperate to connect with someone who was willing to give the same level back, or at least that understood me, because I really don't ask for much, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I started sharing with older women, say women older than I was, in the workplace, that I know that sounds so strange, but I actually pulled aside, I was 22 at the time, and I pulled aside a 27-year-old woman I had been working with. And I think we've all got relationships with women at work that have just blossomed, even though you wouldn't expect them to, no matter the age difference or what your hobbies and interests are. And I shared with her like what I'd been going through, because she'd actually been exposed to a couple of these women herself through other channels. And she just shared a story with me that was copy and paste of everything I had ever felt and gone through. So that then made me go, oh, okay, I'm not the only one. It's not something that's wrong with me. You know, this is a process, and I need to work through it and continue sharing for my personal growth. And so that was kind of like that first step in step A, to share with someone really how I'd been feeling and why I'd been feeling that way and how I'd come to those conclusions. And then I think there is literally nothing more true that I have ever read in my life than surrounding yourself with people who lift you up and who literally have your back, but have your back in a way that it's not like they've got to, you know, constantly check in on you. It's they're there for your wins, no matter what. Your joy is their joy. And when I started meeting more people and exposing myself to things outside of the bubble I had been in since, you know, year 6, I went, oh, okay, it's not just sharing it, but there are actually a whole other, as you say, like kettle of fish or whatever, fish in the sea, of people that are out there. And so how I've kind of come to this really comfortable place of joy and success and happiness that I'm in now is because I did then actively make the effort to connect with people I would usually be afraid to start a conversation with. And as cheesy as it may seem, I think meeting a lot of Reese's friends, my partner's friends, changed my world, because I was then surrounded by a group of women who almost have 9 years of life experience on me, and I connected with, you know, better than almost anyone I've ever connected with before. And so that made me think, oh, maybe I just needed to find my people, and my people are out there in all different shapes and forms. And that was like a really positive step to help me get to where I am now, because time will tell. And I think that's something that all 16-year-olds should know. Time will tell. People will reveal their true colors, and people will either change or you'll just both change and go your separate ways. And that's so, so fine. But there are people out there who 110% will want to connect with you, and your joy will be their joy. And now that I've come to that realization and I'm able to share these things with the both of you, like my wedding, for example, who would have guessed that however many years ago, the three of us all hanging out being, you know, just women in their young 20s, we're still in our early 20s, but, you know, would now be able to share my wedding. Like it almost seems like a miracle to me to know that there are multiple people out there who actually can share my joy too, because I hadn't experienced that.
And I think that's what we touched on in the first, or not touched on, that was like our main thing, was like people supporting each other. And you can't even describe like the feeling, because if you're used to people bringing you down or walking on eggshells, and you find those people that when you do have a win, no matter how little it is, or like you go to for support, and they like uplift you or like support you, you just feel so good. And you're like, these are the friends.
Yeah.
These are proper friendships. Like, and it just shows how toxic the other ones are. Like when you find that group of people that are so uplifting and supportive and just like positive and like happy and make your life so much better, it just shows like how like toxic those other ones are.
And I reckon it kind of ties into like in the last episode, I was addressing the fact that I'm like not a very competitive person, and I struggle with people who are competitive or have dominant personalities. And like, as you guys said, like you can change from high school and like you can, but there's a certain extent to which your personality goes with you through high school into your early 20s and then into your early 30s. And sometimes like when you're at school and you go to school from 9 to 3 every single day, or 8:30 to 3:30 in our case, like you're forced into those friendships because that's the only people you have. But once you're outside of those friendships, you can actually divert from certain personalities that clash with yours. And sometimes those people don't change, like their personality traits don't change. So those who were competitive in high school, still to this day, and I feel like that's a huge message for like my younger self, is that like some people who are involved in drama in high school remain involved in drama in their later years of adulthood. And I actually learned that not through like, you know, my friendship group, but through working in office places and seeing certain personality traits, thinking, don't we all move on from this? Don't we, you know, like grow up a little bit from that? And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I just think that like once you're out of high school and you're not forced into those friendships, like you get the opportunity to find your people, as you said, that don't clash with your personality.
Yes. No, I love that. And I think your people will come to you once you stop like using that energy on those people. Your people will like, you will let those people in, and that's how like you will find them, when your energy is like going towards the right people.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like a good way to articulate a piece of advice to someone who was feeling as though they were in a friendship like this, or might be, or they're just trying to understand where they're at in the world, is like, you do only have, you know, this particular bandwidth of energy. So if you're spending 30% of it feeling anxious and sad because that's how those people make you, imagine if you diverted that 30% elsewhere, like how transformational that would be for your life. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it literally did transform my life. It's become so much more rewarding now, because the support I have, like even with the two of you, it doesn't matter how long we go without talking. It doesn't matter how our day's been. It doesn't matter where in the world, the country, you name it. The passion and connection and love is always there. There's never a question about any of that whatsoever. So the bandwidth of energy I put into our relationships is always worth it, because I get rewarded for it. Rewarded is probably the wrong word. We should. I receive the love in return.
Do you want to share like a little bit about how, like, you know, if you've had any toxic friendships in the past, like what were the steps that you took to get out of those friendships, if you are out of those friendships?
Oh my God, Steph, I'm actually so terrible at that. Like I once, oh my God, I regret it. But my first toxic friendship, I literally was just so sick of the way she was treating me and others. It was like a group chat kind of situation. And I just left chat. Like I just removed myself and fucked. Like, oh my God. And I was like, why? Like it was the stupidest thing. My advice is to slowly drift away from the person.
Yeah.
I mean, you
not
can
do
say,
what Demi did.
Don't do what I did, because then they'll come back and be like, and attack you. I don't know. That's just what happened to me. But they understand the circumstances now later on, but the way I did it was really, really aggressive, and because they was my really, really close friend, it actually hurt them in, you know, in doing so. Like I didn't really go to them and kind of express how I was feeling. I sort of just removed myself from the situation, and I was like, nah, can't deal with this anymore, and I just removed myself. But my most recent toxic friendship, I grew some balls, and I hate confrontation, but I literally just cut it off. I got my friends together and I was like, all right, let's do this. I need to do it. I need to write like a really good text that's like nice, but like civil, and just end it. I can't just like keep going with the friendship. So you just got to cut it off, but in a nice way. And
just being honest.
Just being honest and transparent, and then just literally saying, I'm so sorry. You can't be in my life anymore. Like, you have to be honest with them. You can't just be like, oh, I just want some time to just sort of like be away from you or whatever. Like, that's just not going to work, because you are already emotionally out of the friendship. So you just need to cut it off, and it's the best way possible, because they may not contact you again. So they may or may
it's such
not.
a hard
in the past,
awkward thing to do, but essentially you haven't been putting yourself first by staying in that friendship. So you're eventually putting yourself first now. Doing
and
that.
It hurts because you love them to bits, and you don't want to leave the friendship, but it gets to the point where it's just affecting you so much that you have to. And man, like, I'm so much happier now that I'm surrounded by like amazing people. Like, I've got my friends, and like, I wouldn't change them for the world. Like, I'm surrounded by so many amazing people. Not so many, I have like 5, but like, that's the best.
You only need
it's
5
like
hype girls.
Quality.
It actually, like, I just feel like tying back to something you said at the beginning of you coming on, and it's that, like, I feel really proud of you, and I would also openly admit that, like, in high school, we're different people. Like, some people do change. Like, I know that I got caught up in drama. Like, I went to, like, 5 different schools, and each time there was the same drama, and, like, I was just as caught up in it each time. Like, but it's about who you become afterwards. And I did say earlier in the podcast that certain personality traits stay with you. And I know that, like, I was always very sensitive, and that's probably why I got caught up in the drama. But I've learned from that, and I know that it's about communicating now and not like getting caught up in the drama. And I just feel like, saying that I'm proud of you for acknowledging that you were caught up in that too. And I feel like it shows who you are, because a lot of people won't say that, and like
it shows the growth,
and that's part
and,
of the problem.
And that we all need to
It definitely does, and it's also about like it's also about self-reflection. Like, you can be surrounded by toxic friends, but you can also be the toxic one as well. So you've got to fix the way that you act towards people. And when I was a bit younger, like, I realize now that, like, I could have been a bit of a bitch at times, and like, I could have been a bit of a two-faced person, but as you get older, you fix those things, and then you surround yourself with people that you believe are going to be the same. So I don't know, and I feel like that's with you too, really. Like, that's why I've surrounded myself with you guys, because you're just great girls, and I feel like the friendship circle that we have now is just amazing. In friendship groups, they just, I don't know, they're surrounded by girls that are so bitchy that they automatically think they're talking shit about them when they leave the table.
Yeah, I've certainly been in those situations where, like, I'm not that close with people. Like, I'd say I've come into, like, new friendships in the last few years, right? And I've walked into events where I've sat at a table, and then someone gets up, and I can literally think of an example where Shana was at the table with me, and like, somebody got up from the table, and I kid you not, the conversation became about that person. And I have never been more shocked in my life that, like, that would have been like a year ago. And I was just like, are we actually doing that? Like, fair enough if you're talking about someone who you're not friends with anymore, but like, to talk about someone who you're friends with who gets up from the table is absolutely fucked. We're so happy to have had you on, Eliza, and we look forward to having you on other episodes and topics as well. But thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, and letting like telling us your experiences. And I can't wait to have a wedding episode. You're back on for a wedding episode.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, oh my gosh. That is so exciting.
Like,
I feel
the fact that we're even saying that.
I was just thinking the other day, like, the 3 of us and all the photo opportunities, because guys, it needs to be Instagrammable. So, like, I shut my eyes the other day and I was like, I can just see Shana like right in front of that all white flower wall, like really popping her
Yes.
It's going to be amazing. So yeah, this year's a good one. It's our year.
Yes.
Woo! Yes.
Queen.
Yeah. Yay. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Demi, and like we appreciate you sharing everything with us, and we can't wait to hear the final episode. Yeah, and we'll definitely have you on some other episodes as well, and some other topics that you have experience in.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yay! Thanks for having me on. Oh my goodness.
Okay, guys, we had both Eliza and Demi come on to talk about their experiences with toxic friendships, and I think that they both had some very interesting things to say. We thought we would address our final thoughts and sort of retouch on last episode's opinions and topics, I suppose. I do just want to say quickly that we have decided that we will cut both of their answers throughout the video and the podcast. So I hope that you guys were able to follow along enough. And sorry we didn't intro it like that and pre-warn you that was going to happen. But Shana, what do you think? Like, do you have anything that you've sort of taken out of today and any changed opinions on friendships and toxic friendships?
Yeah, like I think a lot of what you guys will gather there is we brought on people that have been in situations where they have toxic friendships. So you would have heard a lot of that side of things. Obviously in our first episode, we spoke a lot about it's not just one person, it could just be the relationship. So I think we just wanted to retouch on that, where that was this episode, I guess you heard more about someone experiencing that toxic friendship from another person. But we also know that it's not just one person. It could just be the relationship isn't meant for you guys, or it was, but now you guys have moved on. So
yeah, I think that it's just really important to retouch on that, because like my personal opinion is that it's all about the dynamic of a one-on-one friendship, a two-on-two friendship, like a four-person friendship, like group friendships. You know, we've talked a lot about like high school groups and, one-on-one experiences and what people's expectations are of best friends, for instance. And I think that like really what makes a toxic friendship, like the word toxic just really means that it's unhealthy. And to me, the word unhealthy comes from the word like unbalanced. It doesn't balance out. You can't find compromise. You can't communicate about your feelings. And like, I just think that it's really about the dynamic. So I personally, like my view on friendships is that I love everyone on an individual level, but sometimes I know if you put the wrong number of people together, that can create a toxic group of people and an unhealthy dynamic. So I really wanted to reiterate that following what we spoke about earlier, in that like I think that everyone has good qualities and everyone has flaws and weaknesses, and I think everyone can reflect and grow. It's just a matter of choosing to do that as well. So if you have listened to this, reflect on your actions, reflect on your friendships, and just take away the key message.
Yeah, and
I suppose.
It's a lot to do with self-reflection as well. And I think we did touch a lot about that in this episode as well. Our guest did speak about they did have to do some self-reflection and did acknowledge like they were completely different people in high school as well, and it takes like a lot of growth and maturity to get to where they are now. So a lot of the time it is that change. It doesn't mean it's just that one person. So
that's pretty much all that we have to say, I suppose, for this episode. Like I could do a whole nother episode, and maybe we should, Shana, just you and I chatting about it and readdressing everything again. It's something that I feel like is just such a primary issue in your 20s. Thank you so much for listening or for watching. We will see you in next week's episode, and we love you lots. We hope you took away some messages from today and have learned something and reflected on something.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you so much for listening, guys. We'll see you next week.